several weeks ago talked about growing your club. How do you grow your club? That's a challenge. A lot of things different clubs try to grow their club, try to get it going. What happens is quite often is you get people to come in, but they don't come back. Some of you know what I'm talking about. They come in, they don't come back. So it gets people in, but it doesn't get them there. The real question, what's going to grow the club? The real question is, why do people come to the club? And the reason people come to their club, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say people come to your club because they want to become better speakers. Fair enough. Toastmasters says they want to become better leaders. I haven't seen that happen yet. I think they want to become better speakers. So how do you become a better speaker? Well, something magic happens at the club. You get feedback. You give your speech. Great, fantastic. But at the end, you aren't done. If you just gave your speech and walked out, you'd feel like kind of a waste of time. The evaluation completes the speech. Evaluation completes the speech. You give your speech, you aren't done. Once you get the evaluation, then it's complete, then it's finished. So you want people to come back, you want to grow your club. You grow your evaluations because the evaluation completes the speech. Exactly. That's what we're talking about, how to grow. G-R-O-W. Last time I talked about the first step of growing was get your audience's attention. Now, had a huge discussion about it. Some people agree, some people disagree. It's fine, it's all on the web. Go back there, check it out again if you want to review it. The idea is to get your audience's attention because you're talking to your audience. So you want to include everybody, and that'll set you apart from a lot of other places, a lot of other clubs. There's a lot of evaluations, they kind of ignore the audience. Toastmasters teaches you to ignore your audience. That's a Toastmasters trap. I'll talk about that more in February. Right now, just know it's important to get your audience's attention. That's G. Next step is R. G-R-O-W, keeping track. R comes after G. R. And the thing about R is if you don't have R, you've got no place to start. The speaker has no place really to build and start because they don't have that basic R. You need to have the R. And it happens. People leave it out. I left it out. I'll talk about that in a little bit. I left it out for a long time. Completely left out the R and said, that's not important, not a big deal. But because of that, people didn't develop and grow and build as they could have. And maybe it cost a few people from joining that club. The importance of the R. Once you do have the R, then all of a sudden, things get better. Things improve. Because there's a place for people to stand on, a place for people to start. That's really important. When people come in a club, they talk speaking, they're vulnerable. Without the R, you can just crush them. The R is for recognize their abilities. Recognize their abilities. Now there are speaking coaches out there, professional speaking coaches, that don't believe that people really have any abilities. Speakers are pretty much just all bad, and then it's just kind of what you have to kind of tell them. I'm thinking in particular of Old Bill. Anyone know Old Bill? You know Old Bill? If you don't know Old Bill, he's an older guy, professional speaker, professor of speaking, and his approach to speaking basics, he'll rip you apart to shreds because you really aren't any good anyway, and he doesn't really know why you're wasting his time. People come from miles around to be ripped apart by Old Bill. But my hunch is he's had problems in Toastmasters clubs. He keeps creating new ones all the time, perhaps because he doesn't recognize their abilities. Now, for a long time, I thought the same thing as Old Bill. I thought the same thing. I thought, you know, this whole recognize their abilities, that's not really that important. Really want people to grow, you got to kind of, you know, toughen them up. So I gave scorched earth evaluations. You know what that is? You heard of those? Shannon? Okay. If you don't know what a scorched earth evaluation, it goes kind of like this. Let me evaluate. Nice try. Oh man, this is organize your speech, right? Well, let me see. You had no beginning, no middle. We were all just praying for the end. Oh man, vocal variety will come later. Didn't do that. And talking about connection to the audience, not really there. You seem nervous. I don't know why. Because after all, you weren't that good. There's nothing to be nervous about. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many things to improve on. I just can't really think of things. I just start with just standing still and being quiet for a while because it seems to improve your speaking. Yeah, I can't really think of too much. Just, try it again sometime. Take a long time off so you think about all the things you did wrong. If you want to know more about them, I'll tell you about them after the meeting. And, better luck next time. Scorched earth evaluations. Ever heard one of these? No, not in Toastmasters. Shannon, yes. If you've ever heard old Bill evaluate people, you hear a lot of them. It's an approach. And I used to use that approach all the time. Scorched earth evaluation would say, hey, I thought if the person isn't crying by the end of my evaluation, I'm just not trying hard enough. I'm not getting through. Until one day, in my club, Toastmasters Club, I gave one of these scorched earth evaluations, and Ted was there. Now, Ted is an older guy, been in Toastmasters forever, and he just really knows stuff. I learned so much when I didn't hear from Ted, so Ted was there. I said, great. Came through the evaluation, scorched earth evaluation, finished, and said, Ted, what do you think of the evaluation? And Ted said, Tim, you didn't recognize their abilities. I said, yeah, Ted, okay, but I don't need to do that stuff. That's not important. Not a big deal. You don't know how they're gonna get better, how they're gonna get strong, Ted said, Tim, you have to recognize their abilities. It's really important. And I said, I really don't think so. I think you're mistaken. I know Toastmasters is what's the big deal about recognizing their abilities? Why should I care? Why does it matter? Why bother? Ted told me why it mattered. I always remember this. Ted said, Tim, you get courage from your strengths. Think about that. You get courage from your strengths. You come up here, you're vulnerable, nervous, and the first thing you hear about you from the evaluator is, well, gee, wasn't really organized there now, was it? You want to come up again? You think, wow, I better get better. I better improve. I'm really motivated now. I'm going to show that evaluator that I'm really good. Or you just think, don't have it. Some do, I don't. You give up. Or at the very least, you go somewhere else. Recognize their abilities. So incredibly powerful, so incredibly useful, so important. And yet some speakers, when they do evaluations, they completely leave it out. They think you're going to get better if they just kind of rip you apart. And it doesn't work that way. Recognize their abilities. Because you get courage from your strengths. Exactly. So you may be thinking, okay, Tim, I'm new to Toastmasters, or I've been in Toastmasters for a while, but I mean, it's a new speaker. Do they really have any abilities? What really stuff do they do well? It's supposed to be organized. It's not organized. What can I talk about up there? That's a challenge every evaluator has. What abilities you're going to recognize? How do you recognize them? That's why there are these speaker evaluation questions in front of you. Just a listing of questions you can use for any speech, anytime, to make that connection. So anybody speaks, anything. You just start going through the list. and start taking a look through it. Okay. Use gestures to emphasize points in the speech. Did they do it? Didn't they? If they didn't, keep on reading. Use body movements to emphasize structure of the speech. Did they do it? Didn't they? Just keep scanning down. Something will come out because you have strengths, you have abilities. The important thing is to recognize your abilities. Build your strengths. Just keep reading all the way through. Once you find something's a strength, just write it down. Write it down. When you give the evaluation, fine. Now, last time when we first started, I explained that the book is the evaluation for that particular speech skill. So if you organize your speech, the book evaluation, that goes to the speaker, fine, it's great. But it's also to help the audience understand their strengths and to recognize their abilities too. The audience may realize they have that strength too. It's all for the audience. It's all about the audience, not just for the speaker. It's all about the audience. Otherwise, you and the speaker could have a chat somewhere. So you go through and you start recognizing their abilities and talking about the great things. You may find abilities in here they didn't know they had. They discover all sorts of new strengths, new abilities they have in them. Well, the audience may recognize all sorts of new strengths. You talk about these things. Oh, wow, I did that too. That'll pull the audience to speak more too. So the second step, very important, is to recognize their abilities because you get courage from your strengths. Now next time, talk about, this is R, recognize their abilities. Sometimes that's all Toastmasters do. They forget about O. Step O is very important. It balances out recognizing their abilities. It's so crucial to their building and development. That's what's going to happen next time they talk more about Step O next time.
Well, once again, I really enjoyed your speech, Tim. I thought it was pretty fabulous. The key things that I noticed is that you were very engaging, authentic, which I really value. An example of where I felt you were particularly authentic is when you gave the Toastmaster philosophy versus your personal philosophy as to why people participate or join a club. I also like the repetition as far as evaluation completes a speech. I love that because I remember. It helps me. I thought you had phenomenal body language as well, great examples, and you were humorous. And I thought that was great. I looked forward to your next speech because it was just engaging to me. I try to be pretty real with my feedback, and so I didn't have, unfortunately, any growth opportunities, and maybe I just need to grow to identify more growth opportunities, and because I don't have any right now for you. Okay, so that was it.
Speech very much. I like that you call out the key points from your last point, the G. And then you also define what the R is, recognize their abilities, and that's a great point because that's sort of tied to giving respect to people, what they can do. And also I like that you involve audience, you ask Shannon a question and she answered. And I also like your very good example about scorching. That's actually very interesting. I never heard of it before, but by your demonstration, I fully understand what it means. And I also understand the impact of it. Also, I like you have a good story about Ted. Actually, Ted, I think I've heard his name before and I have seen him around, but I never really have any contact. But after your story, I can see how wise he is. And now I realize why people respect him so much. So that's a great example. One improvement I would like to say is, I like at the beginning of this speech, you actually recap the first point, but you didn't recap the whole speech, the purpose of the speech. So I understand that it's supposed to be a piece of a bigger speech, but maybe you can treat it as a mini series in the sense that at the beginning of every speech, recap what's the main purpose of the speech, also the points you already covered. I do like you actually sort of have a little brief peek of what's coming next, so that's great. So that would be my suggestion, because otherwise people just get lost. I mean, don't know what you're talking about.
The speech was easy for me to identify too. You talked about people coming in and leaving, and you know, I certainly run the risk of doing that. So it was like you were sort of reading my mind. Should I stay? Should I come back? But I thought it was a fantastic speech, and it was something I can aspire to. You know, it was something so beyond where I'm at. You know, that it's like a challenge for me, and that's another way that I can identify personally to it. You know, I liked your repetition and how you broke it out into really clear, simple points. You were constantly using the word grow and strength. There may have been something else, but there was, you know, there were like very key words that you kept using over and over again. And there was the sentence, courage from your strengths, that you used right in the middle of the speech. And it was kind of like the most important point, you know, that you get your courage from your strengths. And you made that point very effectively. There was like a pause before it and a pause after it. So I thought that was well done. And yeah, overall very nice.
Tim, I love the speech. It's really good. It's a series of speeches on the same theme. It shows preparation, study, research. So it was really good. And I also like the way that you stated your own philosophy. My philosophy is this, Toastmaster philosophy is that. And I agree with you that, yes, Toastmaster is an ancient, I mean, not ancient. How about many ancient, but doesn't mean that they are right in everything. So I admire your thinking that there are some rooms for improvement and we could contribute to that. The scorched earth example, it's really very well done. You did it very well. It's interesting. It's funny. It adds some life into the speech. I would even suggest maybe exaggerate a little bit. You did really good, but add a little exaggeration to it and butcher really the poor speaker who's being scorched. To get courage from your strength. I think everybody commented on that. That's similar to the daily affirmation that somebody, and I agree, it's very thoughtful. Just one room for improvement. The word grow, at the end you did spell it very well. You said G, we talked about it last time, R today, O is something, and O and W is in the future. I would suggest two things. One is give a little peek into what is O and what is W, just a little, I would say teaser or something that catch our interest. And one more suggestion that I would also recommend in the beginning. It would be really good to say that this speech. Just state the fact that this is the second speech in a series of 4 speeches. Last time I gave G, today I'm going to give R, and O and W are coming for. So it just shows the continuity. Excellent.
Tim Wilson, what a great speech. And that's going to help us grow. That's why I brought this trophy. We're going to win this. I have an idea we should get it tonight. You knew your material. It came from your heart. It was wonderful. Nice handout. I finally got one. So you can illustrate exactly, this is what I'm going to be addressing. And Tim, you finally gave me that acronym I was looking for. And it took a while for you to tell me what the R was stood for, but I like it. It's so important. Recognition. That's important. We need to all have on pins for recognition, and this trophy would be helpful too for recognition. We gotta give our members recognition. That's so important. So I can feel the club growing now. And thank you for your inspiring speech.
I want to make right off the bat is use the introduction to fill in the information. For people who weren't here for your other presentations, you can say this is part of a 1-hour speech, it's the third thing, and then that way you don't have to waste your valuable time filling in the information we already should know. I like Again, the stress on evaluation completes the speech. I think that's very important. I do think that you might want to just review why that is. You talk about the importance of feedback, but evaluation is the feedback. If anybody wants to talk, just to hear themselves talk, they could stay home. It's really the feedback that, so that would be one suggestion. Another suggestion, I really like you get courage from your strengths, but I think actually the correct thought is you get courage from knowing your strengths. Anytime you start, when you're new at something, you don't know what you're good at, and you have to let people know that. You don't know if you're smart or if you're strong, if you can lift more than the average person until somebody points it out. I also wish to congratulate you on your damn effective teasers. You know I can't stand not knowing what that O is for, especially since it's a letter in my name. I also would like to say, when you talked about the scorched earth evaluations, how many times have you really heard a scorched earth evaluation? Because one thing Toastmasters is very specific about is that that's not allowed. The one time that I really heard that, I talked to the person afterwards, and it turned out he had just broken up with his wife and was taking it out on the speaker. But we let him know that that was not going to be happening again, and it did not happen again. I also really like this, but I would suggest that you reorganize your questions and list them in similar areas, such as things about the voice, things about the title, and also I would suggest having a sliding scale, like from 1 to 10, so that people can, when they want to get up and talk about your strengths, if I put down 10 for effective comparisons, you know, I can pick out all the 10s, all the things you're really good at. And I could also pick out all the 2s and say, these are some things for you to work on, because there's a lot of stuff you have here, and you only have 2 to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and of course, Tim. Tim, I have to say that this word, this letter, really resonates with me. R, as you see, is my favorite letter. In fact, if only we could think of this, repeating in your minds, and maybe out loud, R, 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 R. So Tim, you really bring out the best of me with this speech. And as everybody else also designated, they really enjoyed this. Why? Because you're a seasoned speaker. You really bring out the best in the audience by speaking. So I thank you for that. And the animation that you have, if you notice the gestures that he used, the role-playing with the scorched earth, and I think that was also a sense of humor that brought to the club, that really brought it in. And for Judy, thinking, wow, should I stay or should I go? This is kind of interesting in how you said it too, because this is something that is appropriate for all clubs, whether we create an environment that allows you to stay and really be genuine and grow. And as Tim said, we want you to be better speakers. Here's 3 areas of improvement that perhaps very subtle, but at your level, it's the subtleness that really applies. When you mentioned that Toastmasters, and you almost had it like, they're over here, they're not here. Toastmasters says, we want to create better leaders. I want to create better speakers. There's a dichotomy there. I think we want to say, instead of having an opposed there, Toastmasters says we want to create better leaders. And I do think we want to also create better speakers. But I think better leaders are better speakers, and likewise, better speakers are better leaders. So that way you embrace Toastmasters, so that you're not opposing the essence of Toastmasters, but you engage it and you embrace it both. So that's number 1. Number 2, as Shannon said, with the thoughts or the questions about the speaking, it needs to be organized in a way that I can maybe block it off in a way that I could understand it. And a great idea that Shannon had, scaling from 1 to 10, but certainly that's up to each individual to be able to address it. So that's number 2. Number 3, I like the way that you built it up for the audience. Very effective. And like Shannon said, what is the R? And I'm thinking, did he say it already? And halfway through you mentioned it. And So that was very effective. But I would certainly like to have you carry that on. So you have the momentum at the beginning, so you have it for the next series. Think of a sequel. Think of a TV series that you're going to watch. Coming up next week, next month, next time. Here's a preview. And here's what I'd like you to think about. We have the O the next time. And you think of what that O might be. Oh, what that might be. And let the audience think about it, almost like giving them an assignment, because the object of your next speech is for them to all come back and say, I gotta find out what this is. I can't wait. That's TV series. And so give them an assignment by asking them, so what would you think that is? But certainly, Tim, always enjoyed your presentation and speaking, and yes, Judy, you too can be